And I would
Mhm.
make sure that I'm not just looking at the last 7 days' performance because there's so many different things that can affect your performance. It could
Yeah.
be seasonality, there could be a deal period. Your competitors might have drastically reduced their price or put themselves onto a deal period.
My name is Kevin Sanderson. I am the VP of Marketing at My Amazon Guy, and I will give my two esteemed guests the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, first of all, Kevin, for having me on. My name is Tom Wirecorn. I am an Amazon advertising specialist here at ClearAds. I've been working with slash for George for over 7 years now.
I'm George, founder of ClearAds. Been going just over 13 years now.
Nabil asks, I have a phrase and an exact campaign for my top keywords. They're starting to not produce as well as they did. Is it time to make a broad campaign with the same keywords? I want to hear you guys' thoughts on how often should you make changes based on week to week performance?
I guess to answer your question, Kevin, I wouldn't overreact and I would
Mhm.
make sure that I'm not just looking at the last 7 days' performance because there's so many different things that can affect your performance. It could
Yeah.
be seasonality, there could be a deal period. Your competitors might have drastically reduced their price or put themselves onto a deal period. Like you have to look at everything. You can't just look at your keywords in your campaign saying, well, it didn't do as well as last week. Let's kill it off, or let's start a broad campaign, or let's start introducing the budgets astronomically when there's so many things to look into. You're right to look at the last 7 days, but also compare that to the last 30, the last 60, potentially even the same time last year. Take into consideration what's happening in the real world, as well as actually what might be happening on Amazon in your space, in your competition. So I don't know if it's immediately time to jump into a broad campaign. I would see what you can do to try and fix what's happening in your campaign. Like, is it just the first week that it's dropped off? Did you only launch this campaign a week ago? Before even introducing further campaigns, like have a look at your bid. Like, is it below the suggested bid? Has your CPC come down? Potentially optimize those bids. Have a look at the placement bids before you start introducing broad. Because the problem with broad, yeah, you could bring in so many random, irrelevant, low quality traffic terms coming through that. I don't know what your keywords are. And broad match and phrase match have actually changed how they operate in the last year. It doesn't even have to be closely relevant. If you are going to go into broad match, I would make sure that you're doing broad off of like the hyper specific keywords you've got. I'm assuming they are if you're looking at your top keywords. Another question I would ask is like, how have you segmented those campaigns? It looks like you've built a phrase and an exact campaign. If they're your top keywords and you've got half a dozen of those keywords, if you've got the budget to allow yourself to do that, I'd recommend, at least for exact, segmenting those in single keyword campaigns. They've got their own budget. It means they're not going to be kind of interrupted or that budget eaten into by other keywords in those campaigns. And start looking at your placement modifiers as well. If you go into that ad group and look at the placement modifier tab, you'll be able to see how that campaign actually does on an individual placement level. And if you have these keywords in their own singular keyword campaigns, you'll actually know exactly how well that keyword does in those placements, whether that's top of search, product pages, or now rest of search. You can actually influence the placement modifier adjustment for rest of search. And you can do that methodically. You don't have to immediately go in at 100%. You can go up to 900% if you want. Don't do that from the word go. Like, start to increase it by 10%, build up your confidence. And as soon as you start seeing those ACOSs be where you want them to be, that gives you a bit more authority to start increasing them in bigger jumps.
Can I just add
Please.
as well, in terms of what you say regarding not doing so well, is that the ACOS? Is that the total amount of sales that you're getting through? Just be wary as well for those who are looking at just ACOS when they're deeming a successful keyword and an unsuccessful keyword. Really good to consider the number of sales that comes through that term per week, and also the conversion rates. That's something else really to consider, because if your conversion rate dips, then yeah, definitely be looking into, okay, has that been across the board? And that's why search query data, reviewing that every week as well, is going to be pretty helpful. It just gives you that slightly more in-depth look into, okay, the conversion rate has dropped for you. Has it dropped across the board, or is it just for you? If it's dropped across the board, okay, then it's more of a macro impact on what's happening in your account. But if it's happened to just you, then yeah, you're going to have to do something to react. So, and actually what we've seen in the past is these macro impacts happen to accounts and they do more damage than good, right? Because they think they're being proactive and looking at their account often. So that's something also to bear in mind when you are optimizing your campaigns.
Want more of this? Subscribe to My Amazon Guy and turn on notifications so you know every single video we put out. channel.